Style Garden Manager for Renee's Garden Seeds, and today I'm planting my Saffron crocus bulbs. And I have my bed here amended, and I've used some well broken down compost and a good all-purpose dry fertilizer. So I wanted to create a moderately rich bed for my crocus to grow in. So your bag that you'll receive has growing instructions, so you just follow what it says. For bed planting, you want to aim for 4 inches apart and about 3 to 4 inches deep. So I just take my bulb, and you want to make sure you're planting in the right direction. You can see the root end is sort of flat, and you can see the little roots coming out. And then you can see the top end where the sprouts come out. You'll see like a little wispy end here, so you want that to be pointing upward. So I have my measuring tape so I can see how far apart I'm going. And I'll just take my digging knife, which has measurements, which is great. So I'll aim for 4 inches deep. And I'll just get them in the ground there, every 4 inches. So I'll go along and plant all my bulbs with their top ends up. One thing I like to do is just lay them out along the row, and then you can, there's no question about what your spacing is, you can see them. I have all my bulbs planted in my raised bed, and I like to grow in a designated raised bed like this because then I don't have to worry about digging my bulbs up inadvertently. I always know where they're at. Once your bulbs are all planted, you want to make sure to water in. Get the bed nice and soaked so the soil settles back down around the bulbs. And from here on out, you want to keep the bed moderately wet. You don't want it to be too wet. A bed for bulbs should never be too soggy wet, but you also don't want it to fully dry out. After the bulbs die off and they lose all of their leaves, you can use the bed to grow some small scale annuals like Johnny Jump Up or phlox. So you can always have a nice color show where there would normally not be any leaves. And I want to show you next to my new stand of saffron crocus, this is a stand that is about 3 years old, and you can see they're just starting to come back for the season, and you can see how much they have multiplied over the last few years. And in another couple years they'll get pretty big, so I'll want to dig these up and divide them so that they don't get too crowded. For my bed of existing bulbs, every summer before their leaves come back, I make sure to work in some all-purpose fertilizer in the top of the bed and scratch it in, and then give them another layer of compost so that they have some nutrients so that they can grow back vigorously. And then we'll come back when they're blooming and show you how to harvest the saffron. So here we are with our bed of saffron bulbs, and they're just starting to bloom as we move into fall here. So you can see this stand is about 4 years old, and you can see how they're coming up, that they've really started to multiply. And if they're happy in your soil, they will increase in size year after year. They produce more bulbs under the ground, which you could lift and divide as they get older. So this is in a nice little raised bed with well-drained soil, so the bulbs are very, very happy in this bed. And so you can see they have definitely increased over the last few years. For us, these start blooming when the weather starts to cool off and we start moving into fall. So you got to really keep an eye on your bed so that you don't miss the blossoms. And these are coming up in succession. You have to make sure to keep an eye on it every single day because more and more come up, and the flowers only last for about a day, so you don't want to miss it. So I like to check every late morning for blossoms, and when they're fully open, go ahead and pull the whole thing. And what you're going for are these little orange stigmas. And this is the female part of the flower that receives the pollen. So if you pull the little petals back, you can see this is the part you're going for, is these little orange stigmas. So here's my little bunch of flowers that I was able to get for today, and I'll make sure to check again tomorrow morning. So you can just go through, and I put a plate with just a paper napkin, and just with your fingers pull off these little orange stigmas. Easier if you pull the petals back first. So I'm just laying these out on a paper towel on a plate, and you want to keep them in a darkish, cool, dry place to dry, and your kitchen counter usually serves that purpose. And so you want to spread them out so that they don't stick together. They're kind of sticky when they're wet. And it takes about 3 or 4 days to get fully dry. Just like that. So I have a little batch right here that's fully dry. It's been about 4 days. And you can see they really shrink up and they get dark in color. So when they're totally dry, you can just save them up in a mason jar or an old spice jar. And they'll keep for a really long time. So as I go through and harvest my succession of flowers, I'll just keep storing them up like this. And you can also freeze them if you don't plan to use them right away. Put them in an airtight container in the freezer. So when you're ready to use your saffron, you'll just take a little pinch, about like that, and then you will steep them in some really hot but not boiling water for about 5 minutes. And then that makes a nice liquid that you'll add to whatever dish you're making. Our pre-orders start in the spring and then they ship in the fall, right before you would want to plant. Thank you for watching.